So Daredevil Season 3 is here, and I finally finished every episode, and I thought why not review the entire season in one video. There's been so much hype surrounding the new season of Daredevil, being the OG Marvel Netflix show and the only one of the Defenders to have 2 solid seasons. A lot was hanging on the success of Daredevil Season 3, if it could actually be a real return to form for Marvel Netflix, especially in the wake of Iron Fist and Luke Cage being cancelled. There will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen all of Daredevil Season 3, go finish it and come back to this review. So what did I think? Well, Daredevil Season 3 is a definite return to form for Marvel Netflix. The show is excellently written, fantastically acted, and as always the fight choreography is superb. And it was simply amazing to finally see another great Marvel Netflix show. The show does though suffer from poor pacing, something every Marvel show has, and in my opinion has a fairly poor finale episode, which definitely lets the series down, but I will come on to that. So firstly, I want to talk about the storytelling. The plot of Season 3 sees Matt Murdock recover from the events of Defenders, where of course a building fell on him. He's dealing with his loss of faith and ultimately deciding that he must kill Wilson Fisk in order to stop him. The show of course brings back the MCU's greatest villain to date, Wilson Fisk. Fisk in this season of Daredevil has finally gone full Kingpin and accepted he rules the criminal underworld. Fisk manages to get out of prison through becoming a snitch for the FBI, giving up the Albanian mafia, and all this is to protect the love of his life, Vanessa, from custody. Of course, as the audience, we realise something bigger at play is happening with Fisk, and he has a far bigger plan at hand than it may seem. Season 3 does a fantastic job of building the mystery. This plotline continues over 9 episodes, building up the big reveal that actually Fisk saw his love for Vanessa as a perfect alibi to the FBI to begin giving up fellow crime counterparts and staging a prison shanking that would aid him in getting out of prison and into protective custody. Through little teasers throughout the show, we see that Fisk is definitely up to something bigger. It is finally revealed that Fisk has managed to manipulate all of the FBI to work for him. A fantastic reveal which was handled perfectly, whilst you will of course have to suspend some disbelief due to this probably couldn't happen, but I was willing to forgive this show for this over the top plotline as it was just so well written and the show perfectly built up to the big moment. Other aspects of the plot that I did like was the return of Foggy. He has so much more to do this season and at times is the real hero. In other seasons, Foggy kind of annoyed me. He just seemed to be there to complain at Matt for being a vigilante and not actually helping. But this season he is trying to give Matt some moral balance. Foggy is actually affecting the plot and coming up with plans in order to take down Fisk. Agent Ray Nadeem was a fantastic addition and his story arc throughout the season was brilliant. Starting out as an FBI agent heading up the operation with Fisk to take down various crime syndicates, he becomes a somewhat antagonist standing in the way of Karen and Foggy who are trying to take down Fisk. Due to Nadeem being blinded by his own ego, wanted to be the man who ultimately brings down Fisk. Nadeem is then blackmailed by Wilson Fisk to work for him, and he does settle into this role quite quickly and does some truly horrible things. He's then redeemed at the end by standing against Fisk, but it was good to see a new addition to have a full arc in this series and not to be only an obstacle for our 3 main protagonists. Moving on to the fight choreography, of any of the Defenders shows, Daredevil has always been the best. Even though this shouldn't really be the case as Iron Fist should be doing a far better job. However, as always, Daredevil has some fantastic fight scenes. There is great weight to this season in the fighting scenes, as throughout the majority of the season Matt Murdock is seriously injured. He's never shown to be at full strength, whilst in other scenes Daredevil would easily fend off multiple enemies. This season sees him struggling with as little as 2 opponents. The prison fight scene, which everyone is raving about, is truly fantastic. I think all in all, Daredevil manages to fight off 6 enemies, and this takes around 9 minutes of screen time before the last minute sees Matt Murdock literally carried away to safety. This whole scene had fantastic weight to it. Sitting at home watching this scene, I felt every punch. Everyone seemed in actual pain and you wondered what Daredevil was going to do. Instead of amazingly choreographed karate fighting, this is more like a brawl. How a real fight like this would play out. The men get tired and hurt and begin scrapping in order to take Murdock down. Of course he manages to muster up the strength to finally take them down, but we do see this take a toll on Murdock. Of course there are other fantastic scenes in this series, my next favourite being Daredevil and Bullseye's first confrontation in the newspaper offices. The scene does really well to set up the strengths of each character, Daredevil being the better at hand-to-hand fighting and win the fights when they're close together, but once Bullseye gets some room and he is able to use projectiles, the fight can turn just like that. It was a great scene and I thought Daredevil would win, but it does well in setting out weaknesses and strengths of both characters and makes for a very creative fight scene. I also mentioned the acting was fantastic in this series, and as per usual, the standout actor was Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk. D'Onofrio is simply fantastic in this role, and as I've said many times before, he is my favourite MCU villain. D'Onofrio's screen presence is just outstanding. He owns every scene he's in, he's completely menacing, and I sit at home scared of him, but also more importantly, he's very charismatic. He's always the best thing about each Daredevil season, and I hope he returns in future seasons, and hopefully pops up in some MCU films. Charlie Cox, as always, is excellent as Matt Murdock. I think the greatest thing about his performance is how, in my opinion, he convincingly portrays a blind man. When his glasses are off, I look at him and always immediately believe he is a blind man. I'm not quite sure how he does it, but I think it's a skill that goes a little bit unnoticed in his performance. The breakout performance, however, has to be Wilson Bethel's portrayal of the secondary villain, Bullseye. Bethel, like D'Onofrio, is incredibly menacing when on screen, but it's a different kind of menacing. Bethel is incredibly unsettling as Bullseye. When Bullseye finally snaps, Wilson Bethel does a fantastic job in showing the character's descent into madness, and I was fascinated by the character due to how complex he was. I think the show did a fantastic job in setting up Bullseye, giving him some elements which allowed the audience to have sympathy for the character. This is especially evident when watching him being manipulated by Wilson Fisk. However, by the end we see his full descent into madness and how Bullseye has now embraced it, and he enjoys being this psychopath with sociopathic tendencies, and he's become pretty unsavable now. He has some unique fight scenes which I thoroughly enjoyed, and I thought it was a shame in how he was defeated by Fisk, just literally picking him up and ramming him against the wall. I think he maybe should have just got away instead, but he will be back with how the season ends. Another element I did like about Bethel's performance is how unsettling he looks in the Daredevil costume. I'm not quite sure how he does it, with obviously only the lower half of his face visible, but you are able to tell it's Bullseye in the suit, and he just looks incredibly menacing and incredibly unsettling. Now, I have heaped a lot of praise on the show, but there are sadly some negatives, which for me don't make it the best season yet. Firstly, the show suffers from the age-old Marvel Netflix problem of pacing. 13 episodes was probably 2 or 3 episodes too long for this season. Whilst I did enjoy the writing and storytelling, I felt the resolution could have been reached much quicker. Perhaps the episode shouldn't be 50 minutes long. I found myself a few times thinking the episode had literally ended, only to realise it still had 15 minutes left. And those final 15 minutes didn't really add much to the episode. There is a flashback episode where half of it is spent on Karen's backstory, and it didn't really add anything to the actual show or the resolution at the end, so I didn't really understand why it was there. Also, I mentioned the finale, it felt a little rushed. The conclusion all happened so quickly, and I wasn't able to keep up. And I think the writers weren't too sure how Daredevil would defeat Fisk, and it all seemed lazily completed with not too much thought put into it, as the writers realised they had 1 episode left and not enough time to set anything up. It basically just assumed Fisk had become an idiot for an hour and a half, and that's how Daredevil kind of defeated him. So it was a shame that this fantastic season ended the way it did, but it didn't put that much of a dampener on it for me. Overall, I really enjoyed Daredevil Season 3. It has its problems, but similar problems that have been seen over many Marvel Netflix shows. The story is fantastic and it hooked me in. It's just a shame episodes were a little bit overlong, but it's definite return to form for Marvel Netflix, and I can't wait to see if there'll be a season 4. So there's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to do a couple of Daredevil video essays over the next couple of weeks, so I hope you enjoy them and please stick around. Thank you for watching.